Regular meeting number 35 will now come to order. Can you please stand for the playing of the national anthem? Councilmember Mitch Brown, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, Monsignor Cody, who is here to lead us in prayer. Monsignor, thank you for coming back to council and to praying over us.
Welcome. Let us pray. Merciful, good, and loving God, be with the members of Columbus City Council as they meet tonight in session for the purpose of conducting the business of our city. At these times, we pray especially for all immigrants coming to our country to seek a better life for themselves and their families, as well as to escape chaos, persecution, and threat of death in their own native lands. May those children separated from their parents be quickly reunited, and may there be a better immigration policy than the one we use in our country at this time. May the citizens of our great city extend a warmer welcome to immigrants coming here, realizing that many of our ancestors were scorned and unwelcomed when they came to our shores in the past. Finally, Lord, may all of us come to a new awareness of the importance of seeing all people as our brothers and sisters in the human family, and do our best to work together in peace and harmony to achieve a better life for all of us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Monsignor. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of City Council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
This week's communications received by the city clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not this time.
Thank you. Are there any resolutions or comments from my colleagues? Councilmember Elizabeth Brown.
Yes. I do have a resolution, 0199X-2018. I also have a guest here. Is Julie Nemechek? Could you please come to the front? Thank you. Tonight, I am presenting Resolution 0199X-2018 to oppose and condemn federal immigration policies that unnecessarily separate children from their families upon entering the United States. On May 7th of this year, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced a new zero-tolerance policy that refers all border crossings into the United States for federal criminal prosecution. This policy substantially increased the number of individuals being detained and directly led to the separation of thousands of children from their families. Attorney General Sessions and White House Chief of Staff John Kelly made it clear that the intent of the policy was to deter individuals, that is, asylum seekers, from coming to the United States. In other words, our official government policy was to treat parents and children so badly that others like them would not want to go through the same thing. On a personal note, these last few weeks, I have two 2 kids at home, and I've parented with a keen sense of my own, I guess, luck, if you will. I've felt it's a privilege to wipe my daughter's runny nose, a luxury to have literal sleepless nights with my infant son. And there are more than 2,000 parents who cannot do those things with their children right now. The American Medical Association recently passed a resolution at its 2018 annual meeting opposing the practice of separating children from parents, warning of the lifelong negative health impacts of this practice. I can't emphasize enough how heartless and contemptible these policies and their implementation have been. Despite the executive order that President Trump signed last week, this national crisis may be the cruelest thing that our government has done in my lifetime. This national crisis is not over. There are thousands of children without parents, and President Trump insists on this zero tolerance policy, which is criminalizing people who cross our border. People who cross our border are asylum seekers. You don't take that dangerous trek unless you are fleeing dangerous and violent circumstances at home. There isn't a single thing I would not do to protect my children, and that is why people cross our borders. They come to us for protection, and our answer has been to cage their children and them separately. It's important to emphasize as well that these new and aggressive and indiscriminate federal immigration policies aren't just disrupting families on the border. They are separating children from their parents all over our country and here in Columbus as well. Last year, City Council provided resources and legal representation to keep Franklin County children with their parents. Julie Nemechek works with families facing these challenges every day. Thank you for your ongoing work keeping families together in our community and for being here this evening to share your experience with these immigration policies that are breaking families apart. I'd like to turn the microphone over to you for a couple minutes and also give time for my colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Brown, and thank you to the Columbus City Council for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the immigrants that I know. The passage of tonight's resolution, it's not just a step, it's a huge step in protecting immigrant families. The zero tolerance policy, it violates the fundamental right of children to a human family. The President's executive order on June 20th, it does not undo this. Still, thousands of children are continuing to be separated from their families, and it makes prolonged detention a very real reality. With this in mind, it's so important for our city to continue to fight and do everything that it can to ensure that children have the right to liberty and to family. I can assure you that your efforts like this do not go unnoticed by the immigrant community. You may not hear from them, but I can attest, based on my experiences. A mother and very close friend of mine who was deported not long after Mother's Day told me that despite all the bad things that have happened to her and her children in this country, there are still very good people. She still loves the city of Columbus. There are good people in government, and she hopes to one day come back here. It's important to understand that what's happening at the border, it's been happening here since January of 2017 in Columbus, Ohio. It's called interior enforcement. On any given day, right across the street at 50 West Broad Street on the 3rd floor, families are being ripped apart by immigration and customs enforcement officers. They're implementing the mass plan for deportation. Parents and even sometimes minors from all walks of life, all places around the world, Latin America, Africa, Europe, Asia, they're being picked up when they're on their way to work or when they're taking their children to school, or even when they are reporting in as they're required to for routine immigration appointments. They're being treated in a way that is simply inhumane and unacceptable. They're interrogated many times for hours on end. They've been told things like, get back on the boat that you came here from. You don't deserve to live in this country. You have no right to live here. Your time is up. You just need to leave. And sometimes this even happens in front of their children. At any given moment, they can be shackled, detained, and shipped out. And sometimes they don't have any living relatives in the country that they're being sent to. About 1 week ago, a mother from a country in West Africa called Mauritania, with the highest rate of slavery in the entire world, was taken into custody. This happened in front of her 12-year-old daughter. She has 3 other American children, including a 1-year-old baby. Her best friend, who loves her dearly, cannot bear to visit her children. She tells me every single time the children pull at her and beg her to bring their mother home. The sad reality of this is that these children may never see their mother again. For her, like many immigrants, deportation, it really is a death sentence. Columbus, Ohio is losing entire populations of immigrant families. It may be covert, but I can assure you that it's happening. These people that I know, they're not criminals. They're loving people. They're parents, they're your coworkers, they're neighbors, they're even religious leaders from all faiths. They attend school field trips. They stay up late. They learn advanced math so they can help their children excel in school. There are soccer moms and dads. They want nothing more than to give their children better lives than they had. And their children, oftentimes American children, are the best students in the very worst schools. They make Columbus a better place. They make our city safer. In furtherance of tonight's resolution, I urge you to continue to fight to do everything possible to protect immigrant children and families. Please do everything in your power to stop the systematic removal of immigrants from our community. Undocumented immigrants, they may not find you. They're scared. But please, I implore you to seek them out and to demand access to them and to help them. They need you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? President Hardin.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Just wanted to say in terms of the resolution, in terms of you coming to speak, how important this period of history is for our country. Oftentimes we're judged by what we do say. This time in our history, we will be judged by what we don't say for the countless folks. And I am just appreciative that over the last several weeks, I've heard voices from both sides of the aisle, made this a nonpartisan issue to talk about what our values are in this country. And furthermore, I really appreciate resolutions sometimes because they allow us to represent, to symbolize, just like the Statue of Liberty, what our values are. And I think this resolution in particular is a great symbol for what we believe in the city of Columbus, that we believe in families, that we believe in people, that we protect young people. And so I appreciate you for the work that you do every day. And thank you to all the folks who have been speaking up and engaging on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Hardin. Before I move for passage, thank you, Julie. Before I move for passage, I want to quote, if you indulge me, my favorite poem, one of my favorite poems, which is by Langston Hughes. And the poem is called Let America Be America Again. And I think the second to last or third to last stanza is something like, and Langston Hughes, an incredibly important artist in the Harlem Renaissance, he was told he had a set of rights as an American, but he was not really afforded those rights. And he had a poignant way of illustrating that through art, a unique way across our history. And this whole poem is about that, so please read it. But the stanza towards the end says, "America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be." And I think that's what we are facing right now. what are we going to make our country into? So with that, I move for adoption of Resolution 0199X-2018.
Second.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Resolution adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitch Brown.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight I have a resolution, if I may, to ask Barb Seckler and her family to please come to the podium. Tonight we recognize Barb Seckler in honor of her 20 years of distinguished service to the City of Columbus. Whereas Barb Seckler has dedicated over 20 years of service to the residents of Columbus through her positions as Communications Director for City Council, Deputy Director of the Department of Public Safety, and in her current role as Director of the Institute for Active Living with Columbus Public Health. And whereas during her time at Columbus Public Health, Ms. Seckler made a huge impact on the health of Columbus residents, every neighborhood through obesity prevention and smoking cessation programs, preventative health screening, hands-on cooking courses, and community garden initiatives. Whereas Ms. Seckler has leveraged over $300,000 in community gardens within Columbus neighborhoods, resulting in over 150 total gardens developed since 2010. And whereas Ms. Seckler served as one of the first female deputy directors of the Department of Public Safety, while serving as deputy director, she was instrumental in engaging neighborhood groups on efforts to keep their neighborhoods safe. And whereas in retirement, Barb Seckler looks forward to spending time with her beloved father, volunteering on political campaigns, and having fun around her passions of food, sports, and politics. Be resolved by the Council of the City of Columbus that this council does hereby express its appreciation for the outstanding contributions that have been made by Barb Seckler during her 20 years of public service and City Council. With that, Ms. Seckler, the floor is yours.
President Harden, Councilmember Brown, thanks so much for the chance to be here tonight. I'm particularly grateful that my dad, Howard Seckler, who I'm going to ask to stand up behind me. Please stand. That's who I want to spend more time with. And my wife, Susan, are here with me. And I just want to say I'm very grateful for being able to have public service over a wide span with a little bit the state, but the city, both with public safety, City Council, and Columbus Public Health. And just a special note to you, Councilmember Brown. You're one of the best bosses I ever had. We had so much fun at safety.
Fun?
It was more fun then. I wanted to give you special thanks. And Councilmember Tyson, it was just a pleasure through urban agriculture and everything that's been done to work with you too. So thank you very much.
Any comments from my colleagues? Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. To Barb, it certainly has been a privilege to work with you in Columbus Public Health, and all the work that you certainly have championed in terms of ensuring that, or helping to make sure that individuals want to be healthy and providing them with the tools for them to be healthy, from the bike rides to the gardens, just to all the work around healthy lifestyles. And so I really do appreciate that. It's been a pleasure working with you on the community gardens. You've been such an advocate for the community gardening as well as just healthy eating, and your personality, your commitment to people, commitment to the city will certainly be missed. I wish you well, and you and Susan as you move through the next phase of your life, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you.
Thank you very much.
If there are no further comments, I move for adoption.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Remy.
Nothing for me this evening.
Councilmember Page.
Thank you, President Harden. This evening have an announcement as well as a resolution. For the past few months, I've partnered with Next Gen of Columbus and the Legal Aid Society to offer a series of housing and eviction workshops across the city. Our next event will be held this Wednesday, June 27th at 4:30 p.m. at the Unity Temple Church of God in Christ, located at 52 Reeb Avenue on the south side. And again, we invite any tenants, landlords, or social service providers to join us for this workshop. And this evening, I have Resolution 0197X-2018, and I would like to invite Cherie Smoot-Johnson, President of the Columbus Realtist Association, and any other members of the Realtist Association here with her this evening to come down to the podium. And this resolution is to recognize and declare June 2018 as National Homeownership Month and to commend the Columbus Realtist Association for their dedication to supporting equal housing opportunities. And I'll just read a little bit of our clauses here. National Homeownership Month started in June 2002 with a goal of helping families achieve the American dream of owning a home. This month, we celebrate those whose success and determination have helped make them homeowners. Their dedication to achieving a brighter and more secure future is an inspiration to each person who is pursuing their own American dream. And the Realtors organizations located across our nation were organized in 1939 when minority real estate professionals were not accepted in the Realtor associations. And we have individuals here from our local chapter. And some of the significant things that the Realtors have done in our nation's history are the creation of HUD in 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Community Reinvestment Act, and establishing affordable housing goals for both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The Columbus Realtist Association continues to open doors that may otherwise remain closed to African American consumers in Central Ohio. They continuously strive to preserve and enhance its industry and community image with local and national government, business, and consumer interest organizations focusing on real estate and community development issues. Are there any additional comments from my colleagues? I would now like to move for adoption of this resolution.
Second. Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Adopted.
Cherie, the floor is now yours.
I want to thank you all for this honor on behalf of the Columbus Realtist Association. And our main goal is, while African Americans are 28% of the population, we only receive 6% of the mortgages. We hit 3 phases educating our community. One is financial literacy. Teaching people budget is not a bad word. It teaches you where your money is going, so your money works for you, not vice versa. Health, where you live determines how long you live. And the third part is how home improvement, because our whole goal is generational wealth. So we teach people how they themselves can do small things to keep their home up so the values can appraise and pass it down to your children, and that they keep the house so you don't start our kids off cash poor using your home for that benefit. Anyone else? Okay. We just thank you again. Thank you.
If you could provide us with ways that individuals can get information about your program and also to introduce everyone with you this evening.
I would like first to introduce you to Pauline Buck. Hello. She's a member of the Columbus Realtors. Ursula Haygood. Hello. And then we have Yolanda Early, who's immediate past president. And for more information, you can contact me directly, Cherie Smoot-Johnson, 614-377-4931, or you can email us at Columbus Realtist, and that's REALTIST @gmail.com. And we took the name Realtist because we weren't.
Thank you, Councilmember Page. President Pro Tem. Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you. I have one resolution. It's Resolution 0203X-2018, and I'm going to ask Juanetta Collins, Daryl Griffith, Latoya Thurman, Chad Anderson, and Regent Epperson to walk towards the podium, please. And it is to recognize Wednesday, June 27th of 2018 as National HIV Testing Day in the City of Columbus. Whereas Wednesday, June 27th, we will commemorate the annual observance of National HIV Testing Day. and Treatment Community Mobilization Initiative. Whereas in Columbus, National HIV Testing Day will be a day that invites people from the AIDS Health Care Foundation, Equitas Health, the National African American Male Wellness Walk, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and Columbus Public Health to unite, raising awareness about the importance of HIV testing and early diagnosis of HIV. And whereas in 2016 there were 199 newly diagnosed cases of HIV infection in Franklin County, an incident rate of 15.7 per 100,000, with people age 15 to 19 having the highest rate of HIV at 38 per 100,000. It was also reported approximately 67% contracting the disease through male-to-male sexual contact. And whereas the African American Male Wellness Walk and the Columbus Public Health will be hosting a community conversation on Wednesday, June 27th at 5:30 at the Lincoln Cafe located at 740 East Long Street to discuss the importance of getting tested. And I'm going to have each of them be able to speak. But Columbus Public Health, Walgreens, Equitas, and AIDS Healthcare Foundation will all be hosting events. And whereas the city is proud to support individuals and organizations who are working to make HIV/AIDS testing a priority. Moreover, the city is committed to raising awareness, reducing new HIV infections, and encouraging people to know their HIV status, as an early diagnosis may equal a normal life expectancy versus a late diagnosis, which can lead to 10-fold increase of death within 1 year of being diagnosed. Now, therefore, be it resolved, this council does hereby recognize the Wednesday, June 27th of 2018 as National HIV Testing Day in the city of Columbus. I move for adoption.
Second. Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. And each of you will come to the podium and state your name and where the testing can be held, and that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. President Harden, Councilwoman Tyson. Sorry, I try not to be so soft-spoken. I just want to say thank you, President Harden, Councilwoman Tyson, fellow council people. Just want to thank you. On behalf of Columbus Public Health, we will be co-hosting the event with my community partners, again at the Lincoln Cafe. It is called Let's Talk, Real People, Real Stories. We're just having a community conversation. We're going to have a panelist discussion, and what we're trying to do is just normalize the conversation. We all understand that there is still stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS, especially within communities of color, specifically the African American population. And so with this event, we just want to normalize that conversation and let individuals know that it is okay to go and get tested. It is okay to know your status, and it is okay to discuss it. So again, I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to pass the mic to my counterparts.
Once again, we thank you for adopting this resolution. One thing that I want to make note is that unfortunately, we have tested someone positive for HIV in every single market that we've had this initiative. So for you all to take the ability and adopt this initiative really means a lot to us, because what it does is gives us the credibility, but it also lets the community, all the way from the corporate person to the everyday citizen, know that we not only are here to help with these issues, but at the same time provide the solutions. So we thank you, we appreciate your support, and we will continue to push our efforts forward in that reflection.
On behalf of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, I just want to thank you for your continued support. You have continuously support all of our events, and that you continue to provide safe space for us to have these conversations. Thank you.
Hi, Wynette Collins from Nationwide Children's Hospital FACES program. I too would like to say thank you for adopting this resolution. It just seems like that, you know, we're always talking about the numbers for HIV, and we're always talking about people not knowing, you know, their status. I'm just really happy that we can continue to go through the Columbus community to provide some of the services that we do as far as the Real Talk, Real Stories, and we just want to invite everyone to come out and join that conversation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daryl Griffith, and I'm with Equitas Health. I would like to as well thank you all for your continued support of this resolution and allowing for us to generate this very necessary conversation, especially within the Black community, and helping to save lives and prevent this disease from spreading any further. Thank you.
Evening, my name is Adam Duncan. I'm the project manager for National African American Male Wellness Initiative. Blessed to be a part of this effort and proud that Columbus is spearheading this effort nationally. So thank you again.
Thank you, and I'll give you your resolutions in just 1 second. But Columbus Public Health will have Take Care Down There clinic on the testing day of the 27th from 1 to 5 p.m. Out of the Closet from 12-3 North High Street from 3 to 7. Club Columbus, which is at 795 West 5th Avenue from 5 until 8. Walgreens at 3583 East Broad Street from 10 until 7. Also Walgreens on 1280 Demers Road from 10 until 7. That's with Faces. Then Equitas Health, 440 North High Street from 9 to 5. Club Columbus, again, 795 West 5th from 5 to 8. And again, Let's Talk Real People will be with Equitas Health, and all the groups will be from 6 to 8. And the AIDS Healthcare Foundation will be at 123 North High Street from 10 until 7. So I thank you for all your organizations coming together to, again, to have these real conversations, to do testing, and to raise awareness, and to help individuals if they happen to have contracted either of these illnesses, that there is support in this community to make sure that they can still live out a good quality of life, as well as we want to also talk about prevention and what's out here to help prevent that, like PrEP and other programs. So thank you for all your work. No, I'll give you resolutions. And I have one announcement. July the 1st, we will have our Linden Farmers Market, and it will be at 2830 Cleveland Avenue, and it's from 1 to 4 p.m. and the ribbon cutting will be at 1:30. So again, the first Linden's Farmers Market, and the market will accept EBT and SNAP, WIC, and produce perks. And again, if you are here July 1st, it's open to everyone in the city of Columbus. Please come out to this wonderful farmers market. And again, I also want to thank the Ohio Farmers Market Network in using, for the two managers of the most successful farmers markets in the city of Columbus, Worthington and Clintonville, are really there to help to make this a successful market, working with I want to say the New Salem Baptist Church community, but again, it is their nonprofit organization that's there that is working in collaboration for this market. So again, July the 1st from 1 to 4, and this will be from July the 1st through August 26th every Sunday. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Are there any comments from our elected officials, City Attorney's Office, Treasurer, City Auditor? I see that we have several area commissions represented, Hilltop, Greater Far South, and Linden area commissions that are here. Thank you for coming to council. May we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk? Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance Committee ordinances 1427, 1428, 1522, 1597, 1639, and 1689-2018. Economic Development and Small Business Committee ordinances 1733, 1734, 1736, 1737, 1755-2018. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee ordinance 1685-2018. Technology Committee ordinance 1530-2018. Public Utilities Committee ordinances 1438, 1479, 1569 1602, 1604, 1608-2018.
We have no speakers for the 30-day, our first reading. So the following ordinance appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Resolutions of expression 200X, 201, 198, and 204X-2018. Finance Committee, ordinances 1462, 1548, 1598, 1664, 1672, 1677, 1712, 1756-2018. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 1620, 1621, 1815-2018. Public Safety Committee, ordinance 1631-2018. Public Service and Transportation Committee, resolution 181X-2018. Ordinances 1423, 1510, 1519, 1564, 1718, 1719-2018. Administration Committee, ordinance 1521-2018. Economic Development and Small Business Committee, ordinance 1607, 1637, and 1745-2018. Housing Committee, ordinances 1703 and 1720-2018. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, ordinances 1671, 1686, 1688, 1690-2018. Technology Committee, ordinances 1343, 1640, 1681-2018. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 1526, 1592-2018. Appointments from the Mayor's Office, numbered A0, 144, 162, 163, 164, and 165-2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do have two speakers on the consent agenda. The first speaker is Mr. Nathaniel Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to council. Mr. Wilkins, you're speaking on ordinance 1720 out of the Housing Committee.
Nathaniel Wilkins, the chair, Minnesota Vacant and Abandoned Property in North Linden area. I am just against this 1720. Just bear with me for a minute.
Sure.
1614 Myrtle Avenue. Back in the days, I think Mr. Haygood or something like that died of a homicide in 2009. And as I watched this property that stood for decades and time after time, and it sat there with no for sale sign, and at the time that the city took it over, mind you, that owner had died as a homicide. And I do think, before Jiza got up here on city council, she was in the attorney office. And the problem here that I have with this, when a person dies of a homicide, the property was set vacant and boarded up for more than 10 years. And here that I see that it's on the agenda, I'm just really baffled, is because myself and I went and cut that property multiple time after time. And to see this now, I just want to know what's going to be done. I don't know if it's going to be given over to Habitat, but mind you, this vacant lot now sits with a new built house on it. The problem is there's a vacant house that sits right on top of this that they're building. So I would just like to have more clarification. What's going to be done with this? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Actually, Mr. Wilkins, you have to follow up. I know that you came and spoke on this last week when it was on first reading, so we will make sure that we get you detailed explanation of what is happening with 1614 Myrtle Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. The next speaker to come before council on the consent agenda is Mr. Minister Kajanga Ashe. Mr. Ashe is speaking on ordinance 1607 in the Economic Development Committee. Welcome back to council, Mr. Kajanga. Minister Kajanga.
Council President Harding, to all the members of council. I'm Kajanga Ashe, I live at 1119 East 16th Avenue, Columbus, 43211. I am the founder of the Economic Rights Movement, which is an international, national, and local movement. I'm here speaking on this economic development and small business 1607. I've met with Department of Development, Mr. Shuney, and he has told me that the capital improvements budget was for huge projects, freeways, roads, bridges, those kinds of things. I met with Councilwoman Page, I've met with Councilwoman Tyson, and at one point, Councilwoman Brown. I am not against this. I think this is the first reading, I believe. Mm-hmm. I would like this to include DTV LLC, which is a company that I work with. We have a public-private partnership with Mobile, headed by Dr. Christian, Dr. Johannes J. Christian, 690 South High Street. Mm-hmm. We've put that together under the auspices of the Franklin County Commissioners. Miss Commissioner Marilyn Brown had us put this thing together. We've done that. We jumped through all the hoops. We dotted every I, we crossed every T. But we have yet to find any funding to do what is being done here with Re-Engine Consulting LLC for professional consultant services in connection with process improvements for the city's public-private 3P programs. We don't get that. We were told that that really doesn't happen. But I see it, when I saw it in the agenda, I said, well, it's happening for this particular company, for Re-Engine Consulting LLC. Why can't it happen for DTV LLC, which hires quote-unquote minority folks out of the community in Linden and other areas? So I'm not against this happening, since this is the first reading, but I would like to include DTV LLC in this process, in this consulting process, with the same kind of fundings. That's my comment. My last 40 seconds, I will close in saying this. We are in need of some houses from the land banks. I've talked to John Turner. I've talked with Mr. Williams from the Franklin County Land Bank, and all the prices of the houses are too expensive for us to afford. We have handicapped people, we have disabled veterans, and we cannot afford the prices of those houses. So we do need some type of funding from the county commissioners and from city council, if possible, to obtain those properties for handicapped and disabled vets. I was the president of Veterans First here in Columbus for a number of years. So I resigned that position. But basically, this is my request. I'm not against this happening, but I would like this to be expanded to DTV LLC, owned by Mr. Larry Drugan, and my work with him and Mr. Christian, Dr. Christian. I think it's going to be invaluable for the improvement and the uplift of the entire city once they see what we're doing for disabled people, disabled vets, and other folks. I think that Columbus is ready for that. That's my comment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minister Ashe. So this piece is on consent, so we will be voting on it this evening. But what I would be interested in is seeing your proposal specifically for DTV LLC, and understanding if there are ways to work together. So I probably might be able to work with Chair Page if we already have the proposal, but I can certainly follow up. But I will ask Director just to speak on specifically what this piece of legislation does for the greater.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Mr. Ashe.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Hardin. Thank you, Minister Ashe, for your comments. The legislation in front of you tonight is a competitively bid contract for consulting services with companies that specialize in process improvement through the Kaizen process, which is a best-in-class process improvement. We're doing this in cooperation with our colleagues in both public service and utilities to help improve how we deliver projects to the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, may I have a motion for approval of these items designated as consent actions? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
The consent agenda has passed. We will now proceed with the second reading of the 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown is chair. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. First in finance tonight, we have Resolution 0183X-2018 to adopt the 2019 tax budget and to authorize and direct the city auditor to submit said budget to the county and to declare an emergency. As I announced last week, and as City Council has done in prior years, the second reading for this resolution will also act as its public hearing as required by the Ohio Revised Code. We did not receive any speaker slips on this resolution tonight, so given that, I would like to turn the microphone over to Auditor Kilgore to provide remarks and additional context on the 2019 tax budget.
Thank you, Chair Brown. As typical, what we ask before you this evening is the passage of the annual tax budget. This process is to be able for the City of Columbus to file the tax budget. That's something my office will do with the counties of Franklin, of course, Fairfield, and Delaware. And the tax budget, what it allows, as you know, is the city's participation in local governmental funds. And I'll talk about that just a minute more. This also sets the property tax rate, which is, of course, unchanged from last year for the forthcoming year. And the tax budget is also kind of our first attempt at setting some revenue estimates for this forthcoming year. And so it's important, you know, we've talked a lot about in the last 6 weeks especially, things that we can control and things pertaining to our revenues that we cannot control. And one item that is important, I've briefed several of you on the expectations for revenues as we are right now mid-year, but there is something that's very important that's occurring tomorrow. House Bill 602, which is in the state legislature. I certainly do not want to put Director Davies on the spot, but since you do have a lot of, frankly, intimacy with this current legislation, what's important is that this is the piece, House Bill 602, that's seeking to preempt municipalities that are setting water rates for other municipalities, just as Columbus does. That could affect our ability to obtain local governmental funds. And as such, in the spirit of full disclosure, we want to just share a little bit of information. So, Director, if you don't mind maybe adding a little bit of commentary, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Auditor Kilgore, President Harden, members of council, we will be testifying tomorrow against this legislation. It is very concerning to us and to many of our municipal partners throughout the state. It will limit the amount of fees that we can charge for water and sewer, and will limit what we can charge to people outside the city of Columbus. This will have pretty radical ramifications on economic development outside the city of Columbus. We will no longer do large utility projects outside the city of Columbus. We're also concerned that the legislation indicates that we will not be allowed to ask our suburban partners who are contracted with us to meet our city standards. We're obligated to meet requirements with the Ohio EPA, and we are concerned that we will not be able to do so with this legislation. We have a pretty extensive list of our concerns with this legislation, and we'll be, again, testifying tomorrow. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director. The reason why it's important to bring that up this evening is because the tax budget does include our estimated revenues, which is approximately $20 million for local governmental funds for next year. And again, in the spirit of full disclosure, just be aware that that's occurring tomorrow, and it could obviously be something that impacts the city of Columbus. However, for tonight, the purposes of this request is approving this resolution, which will allow us to file the tax budget and be able to obviously collect local governmental funds, should they be available for next year, as well as file our estimated resources with the various counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Auditor. Yes, Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, and to our auditor and to Director Davies. I really do appreciate your advocacy. I mean, certainly we have seen the preemption of the state coming in and really, trying to continue to tell whether it be the administration, whether it be this body, that, how we need to run our city and we're the closest to our people. But again, if you think about how much money we've already lost in the local government fund, and then even this whole issue that dealing with the opioid addiction, that, I mean, when the state's saying that they are putting dollars in our city to help us to fight the opioid epidemic, they're taking those dollars from our local government fund. So it's not new money that's coming to us. And so we've lost our state tax. I mean, certainly, it becomes harder and harder to be able to provide the resources to our community when someone else is wanting to tell us how to run our community. And so I really do appreciate your advocacy to continue to fight for our cities. And certainly when it comes to water, we want to be able to manage that. We do not want to be in a situation like some other cities and not have healthy drinking water for our community. So hopefully we'll be successful in this effort. And again, I thank you for your diligence and your work around this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. I will echo her thanks of the director and of Auditor Kilgore. 10 years ago, we had what, 50 million a year in local government funds, and today what you're expecting is maybe 20. So that's a significant reality that we're adjusting to budget-wise. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, this concludes the public hearing for the 2019 tax budget, and I move for adoption of tonight's resolution.
Second. Please call the roll. Councilmember, would you move it from the table?
Move it from the table. I move first to take it from the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
May clerk call the roll?
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Removed.
And now I move for adoption.
Clerk call the roll, please.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, President Harden, and thank you, Clerk. Finally, in Finance, we have Ordinance 1492-2018 to adopt the final 2018 Action Plan budget, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to submit the final 2018 Action Plan budget to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and to declare an emergency. Last October, Council approved the proposed 2018 CDBG plan and budget based upon estimated funding amounts. The plan identifies housing and community development needs in Columbus and establishes goals, priorities, and strategies to address those needs, especially for low to moderate income households. In May, the City of Columbus received its finalized 2018 CDBG allocations from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which included additional funding of approximately $1.2 million. Deputy Director Gian Gardella, can you explain the additional $1.2 million the city received and any current plans for its allocation?
President Harden, Chair Brown, members of council. So yes, a bit of good news here that at a time when we were initially hearing that the federal government might cut a block grant, our allocation when it came out in May actually gave us an additional $1.2 million. We anticipate using these funds for the mayor's comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy in the neighborhoods department for things like street lighting, sidewalks, perhaps some vacant property issues, and other improvements for maybe parks and recreation, or for small parks that might be set up in those areas. So we will have to come forward eventually to council with another ordinance to appropriate those funds, but that is our anticipated plan for using those additional dollars, and we're very grateful for them.
Thank you so much. So this ordinance, as Deputy Director Giangardella said, this ordinance does not appropriate or spend any funding. Colleagues and members of the public be aware that subsequent legislation will be submitted to council to appropriate those additional grant funds. This is being considered as an emergency ordinance to allow for submission of the final 2018 plan by the HUD deadline of July 1. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second. Please call the row.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
That is all I have in my committees. President Harden.
Thank you, Chair Brown. The next committee to come before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. Councilmember Emmanuel Remy is chair. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President Harden. Tonight we have a few ordinances, so everybody grab their popcorn. Tonight, our first ordinance is Ordinance 1421-2018 to appropriate funds within the Albany Crossing TIF Fund to authorize the transfer of cash within Fund 7441, the Albany Crossing TIF Fund, to the Warner Road Improvements Phase 2 TIF Capital Fund project, to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with Complete General Construction Company for the Warner Road Improvements Phase 2 project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $2,501,258.19 for the Warner Road Improvements Phase 2 TIF Capital Fund project, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with Complete General Construction Company for the Warner Road Improvements Phase 2 project, and to provide payment for construction administration, and inspection services. This contract includes reconstructing Warner Road from Ulrey Road to approximately 1,050 feet east and widening Ulrey Road from approximately 390 feet south of Warner Road to approximately 1,110 feet north of Warner Road. Improvements include storm sewers, storm water basin, curb and gutter, sidewalk, shared use path, street lighting, street trees, and landscaping. The estimated notice to proceed date is June 20th. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second. Please call the row.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Ordinance passed.
Next ordinance is ordinance number 1472-2018 to amend the 2018 capital improvement budget to authorize the city auditor to transfer cash and appropriation between projects within the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into agreements with the Director of Ohio Department of Transportation for FRA 70-14.54, Project 2E, the PID 105322, to authorize the expenditure of up to $725,000 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. Are there any questions from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the row.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Next ordinance is 1488-2018 to authorize an amendment to the 2018 capital improvement budget to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with Strasser Paving Company for the pedestrian safety improvements TRR sidewalk replacement project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $763,000 for this project, and to declare an emergency. Would Jeff, would you like to say some words on this tonight?
Mr. Chairman, President Harden, members of council. This is a sidewalk replacement project. Typically, every year the city gets requests for sidewalk improvements that are related to tree damage, root damage to sidewalks, and this is in connection with that. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the row.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance number 1500-2018 to amend the 2018 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds within the Street and Highway Improvement non-bond fund to authorize the Director of Public Service to reimburse various property owners for the replacement of concrete curbs, to authorize the expenditure of up to $50,000 for curb reimbursement from the Street and Highway Improvement non-bond fund, and to declare an emergency. This legislation authorizes the expenditure of up to $50,000 to establish funding to repay various property owners for costs associated with the replacement of deteriorated concrete curb. The Division of Infrastructure Management is responsible for curb replacement within the city limits. Deteriorated curb is typically replaced by the city when a street is resurfaced. As it can be many years between resurfacing of the same street, the city has a program to reimburse property owners that do not want to wait to replace deteriorated curb until their street is resurfaced. Jeff, do you have any comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, President Harden, members of council, the only thing I'll add is basically that this is a beneficial program. Again, we believe that this is a beneficial program that will improve curbs in the city. We're very thankful for council consideration of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And in order to take advantage of that program, you would make a claim through 311 or call 645-3111. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Next, we have ordinance number 1632, 2018, to amend the 2018 capital improvement budget to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with Strasser Paving Company for the Operation Sidewalk Celebrate One Sidewalk Gaps project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $774,371.42 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund for the project, and to declare an emergency. Mr. Ortega?
Mr. Chairman, President Harden, members of council, again, very pleased to bring this legislation forward. This includes a number of locations, 26 around the city, around the hilltop to be exact, for a very worthwhile project that will add to sidewalk coverage in the city. I can provide more information on the locations if desired. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Finally, I have ordinance number 1633, 2018, to amend the 2018 capital improvement budget to appropriate funds within the Special Income Tax Fund and the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, to transfer funds from the Special Income Tax Fund to the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with Complete General Construction Company for this SR 350, State Route 315 at North Broadway Interchange Project 1 and West North Broadway at Ohio Health Parkway Project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $4,763,515.84 for this project, and to declare an emergency. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you very much, President Harden. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Chair Remy. The next committee to come before council is the Economic Development and Small Business Committee. Councilmember Page is chair. Councilman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. This evening in the Economic Development and Small Business Committee, we have Ordinance 1638-2018 to authorize and direct the city auditor to transfer $1,889,586.85 within the general fund, to authorize and direct the city auditor to appropriate and transfer $472,396.71 in cash from the Special Income Tax Fund to the general fund, to authorize and direct the payment of $1,630,156.66 to the Columbus City School District, $16,534.58 to the Gahanna Jefferson City School District, $91,031.88 to the Hilliard City School District, $77,530.14 to the Olentangy Local School District, $59,380.94 to the Southwestern City School District, and $14,952.65 to the Worthington City School District for income tax revenue sharing totaling $1,889,586.85, to authorize the expenditure of $1,889,586.85 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. And I would like to ask Director Shoney to elaborate on this ordinance and the importance of our revenue sharing with our school districts.
Thank you, Chair Page, President Harden, members of council. Under the Ohio Revised Code, if a city, whether it's Columbus or any other city, does a property tax abatement that rises above a certain threshold, typically 50% of the property tax, the city is required to revenue share 50% of the city's municipal income tax if the project generates over $1 million in new payroll to the city. That's not new income tax revenue or new withholdings, but just simply the project generates more than $1 million in new payroll to the city where the project is happening. So you see from this ordinance that we have, I think it was, 5 school districts where we have projects that fit this criteria. The largest of which is, as would be expected, Columbus City Schools, but that's not the only school district where we have these kinds of projects. The revenue sharing is required unless there is an agreement between the city and the relevant school district. I don't think there are any payments in this that are covered by any special agreements, but that may be something that is entered into from time to time, and that would be the only exception to the Ohio Revised Code on this matter.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Is there a second? There's a second from Councilmember Tyson. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all I have, President Harden.
Thank you, Chair Page. The next committee coming before council is the Public Utilities Committee. President Pro Tem Stenziano chairs that committee. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight in Public Utilities, bring forward Ordinance 1456-2018 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Cocosine Industrial Incorporated for the Hapkremian Water Plant UV Disinfection Facility Project, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $14,539,450 from the Water Systems Reserve Fund to the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund, and to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $14,539,450 from the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund for the Division of Water. This project will install a new UV disinfection system at the water plant to provide a multi-barrier disinfection process. The addition of UV disinfection provides a multi-barrier treatment operation that improves public health protection by inactivating chlorine-resistant microorganisms and other harmful pathogens. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, President Harden. If the members could go back to page 5 on the consent agenda regarding Ordinance 1604-2018, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to execute those documents necessary to amend the city's easement rights described and recorded in Deed Book 2174, page 647, and Deed Book 2187, page 337, Recorder's Office, Franklin County, Ohio. Currently, the city possesses title to the current water easement. The city's Department of Public Utilities has reviewed a request by NRI to vacate a portion of the existing easement and determined that the release of the .002 acre portion of the existing easement does not adversely affect the city and should be granted. So per their support and the request to move this forward for development purposes, I would request your support to amend to emergency.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Amend it.
And if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all we have in Public Utilities this evening.
Thank you, Chair Stenziano. The next committee to come before council is the Health and Human Services Committee. Councilmember Tyson chairs that committee. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The first ordinance I have is 1545-2018, and I'm going to ask Alicia Weatherman to come to the podium and any other guests she has with her, please. And this ordinance is to authorize the Office of the Mayor to accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Medicaid for the Enhanced Maternal Health Program in the amount of $497,990.89, to authorize the appropriation of $494,990.89 from the unappropriated balance of the General Government Grants Fund, and to authorize the Office of the Mayor to enter into a contract with Men for the Movement in the amount of $130,850, to authorize the Office of the Mayor to modify a contract with Step 1 in the amount of $215,039, to authorize the expenditure of $889 from the General Government Grants Fund 2220, and to declare an emergency. And I am going to let Alicia, you can please speak on this legislation.
Thank you. Chair Tyson, Council President Harden, and members of City Council, thank you for the opportunity to provide brief remarks on Ordinance 1545, 2018, on behalf of Erica Clark-Jones, the Director of Celebrate One, and our many partners. In an effort to reduce infant mortality in Ohio, the Ohio Department of Medicaid, in partnership with Ohio's 5 managed care plans, awarded a significant amount of grants to support local services and programs. Celebrate One coordinated the development and submission of Columbus's grant proposal and have been awarded $3.8 million. In April, we came before you for approval of Ordinance 0859, 2018, which accepted $3.3 million of the funding from the Ohio Department of Medicaid to support several programs, including home visiting, centering pregnancy, and locally developed programs such as Moms to Be. Since that time, the leadership of Celebrate One has been collaborating with the Ohio Department of Medicaid to secure an additional $498,000 in funding for the following activities: to provide additional support for the Celebrate One community connectors who are working to connect pregnant women and families in 8 Columbus neighborhoods; provides Physicians Care Connection with funding through September 2019 for Step 1 for a healthy pregnancy. These funds allow the team at Step 1 to provide prenatal care and home visiting referrals to over 3,500 women in our community. It provides Men for the Movement with funding to support the hiring of 5 part-time community health workers to identify pregnant women in 43205 and 43206 who are in need of prenatal resources and referrals. Tonight, one of our partners is here in attendance. Cecil Ahad from Men for the Movement will share more about their program.
Good evening.
Good evening, President, Council Tyson, President Harden, and council members. Of course, you kind of know a little about Men for the Movement and what we do, which is basically our mission is to change the condition and the quality of life in our communities. And one of our main goals was to reduce the homicides in Columbus and in the area in our 43206, 07 area and 05. And we did that several years ago. So as we moved along and grew, we developed into saving lives and planning lives. And then our relationship with Celebrate One began several years ago as well in the planning and development after realizing the infant mortality rate, how high it was, especially among black children that dies 2 times the rate higher than any other. So what made us significant and got us involved with the mayor and all that planning was our ability to go out to knock on doors, because that's what they found was missing. A lot of the women and people won't open the doors. You know, these young ladies we found won't go to the doctors, won't go the whole time they're pregnant, not even go. So we had the ability in our area, which is one of the highest areas, 43207, where this is happening at, to knock on doors. You know, when I knock on the door and they say, "Who's at the door?" And I say, "It's Brother Cecil." They say, "Oh, open the door." Or Pastor Lamar as well. So we have established that kind of relationship in our community, which makes us able to reach people. So a couple of the greatest things that this funding is going to do is we'll be able to hire up to 5 people and employ them, and they'll work directly under me and what we do, and reaching people, public awareness, and then reducing this infant mortality, because right now is every other race and culture of people have reduced, except the African American community, which is still, it's like way up here. So we're going to reduce that in our areas, in all areas, because it's just basically about education, knocking on doors, and we can do that, and we're going to do that. And we'll also reduce the infant mortality rate where babies are dying 3 babies a week in Franklin County. Something like that, that's ridiculous. We have to stop that. So we focus a lot on homicides and people getting shot and killed out here, but here's babies that's not even making it till they're 1 year old. And you'd be surprised the people that, they don't even know. You knock on people, you ever heard of infant mortality? No, I never heard, what is it? And they got babies. So that's what this funding will help us to do. And
thank you. And so first, thank you, Alicia, for coming down and sharing, giving testimony on this legislation in regards to the additional dollars that the city is receiving. And so I'm very excited about that. And so to Erica and the team, and I see Priam there in the audience, we're really thankful to have those additional dollars to support programs like Men for the Movement. And certainly, Brother Cecil, just really thank you for the work that you've done around violence and homicides in our community. And now that you've partnered with Celebrate One to make a difference in our children's lives and making sure that they have an opportunity to live past their first birthday, and then after that, again, not to be involved in other activities as the homicide. So I thank you for your leadership and excited about those 5 part-time people that will be working with you. Congratulations. And if my colleagues, do you have any questions? Councilmember Brown.
Not a question so much as Brother Cecil and I go way, 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 way back, and to acknowledge his engagement in the community and trying to deal with the problem, especially associated with homicide, whether it be infant mortality or others. Cecil has been very aggressive at going around, along with certainly with Pastor Lamar. I know he has worked very diligently in the community, and it is appreciated on this council. So thank you very much.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And so he's everywhere, and he's everywhere, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And with that, I'd like to move for passage.
Please call the row.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Thank you. I would now like to move to having, I'm going to ask for 4 individuals to walk to the podium because I have some legislation that all 4 of those organizations are going to receive this evening. I'm going to ask all 4 leaders to walk to the podium, and then they can each talk about their initiatives, and then we'll get ready to, I'll move through and pass legislation. So I'm going to ask from the Human Service Chamber, Michael Corey, Executive Director, to the podium. From Local Matters, Adam Fazio, Director of Development. And Charitable Pharmacy, Jennifer Seifert, the Executive Director. And from Perscalis, Tony Cunningham, the Executive Director. These are 4 wonderful nonprofit organizations doing great work in our community, and I want to have them an opportunity to testify about the dollars they're receiving this evening, and then I will pass the legislation. So, who wants to step to the podium first?
Good evening, Council. Council President Harden, Councilmember Tyson, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk with you this evening. I am Jennifer Seifert. I am a pharmacist and executive director of the Charitable Pharmacy of Central Ohio. There is much national discourse on the high cost of prescription medications in our nation. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the focus in the news in particular in Ohio and the drug pricing schemes associated with the impact to our Ohio Medicaid system. As a pharmacist, none of these things surprise me. with a practice exclusively with the underserved, with the uninsured, and with the underinsured, I am heartened now that our public is starting to realize that this is a national emergency that we must continue to try to remedy. At the Charitable Pharmacy of Central Ohio, we are on the front line of this emergency as we provide critical medication at no cost to our vulnerable neighbors. According to the 2015 Ohio Medicaid Assessment Survey, 24% of Ohioans at an income 200% or less of the poverty level go with unmet prescription needs. We are asking for funding from the council of $25,000 to provide needed medication to residents in our community who would otherwise go without. In 2017, we met this need by providing $4.6 million in medication to nearly 1,600 unduplicated individuals. Our typical patient has a complicated regimen of 7 daily medications. We sit down one-on-one with them at each visit to provide intensive medication counseling and medication follow-up. And thanks in part to a large amount of donated medication we're able to procure, we turn every $1 invested into $8 worth of medication back to the community. Every day, we see patients like Joan, who has diabetes and high blood pressure, and has for 30 years. She's exhausted from caring with for her family and just trying to make ends meet. For Joan, her health had not been her #1 priority for many years. It had been her family and her work. After a recent hospitalization for kidney disease, she came to the Charitable Pharmacy to receive her 4 cardiovascular medicines, 2 diabetes medicines, and 1 medicine to help treat her kidney disease. After we sat together for 20 minutes and went over her medications, she stood up and gave my intern and myself a hug. And I wish that I could pass along that gratitude personally to you as a community that cares about our most vulnerable neighbors. Your investment in the Charitable Pharmacy will allow us to help meet an urgent need for medication, increase individuals' quality of life, and help them to avoid unnecessary hospitalizations. Thank you for your time this evening.
Good evening to Council President Hardin and Chair Tyson. Thank you for this opportunity. Since 1995, Prescolis has been preparing motivated and curious adults who are unemployed or underemployed with the technical and business skills to launch successful careers in technology, creating on-ramps to businesses in need of their talents. And we collaborate with businesses to design industry and job-specific courses based on employers' IT needs. We teach technology skills and professional development to highly motivated students from overlooked talent pools and match talented graduates to employers, providing career support throughout the process. Prescolis' mission is to open doors to technology careers to individuals from often overlooked communities. And we envision a future where individuals from any community can access well-paying career positions and where talent is recognized and recruited from many diverse sources. Prescolis addresses at least 3 significant workforce development needs for low to moderate income individuals: the opportunity gap that keeps many high potential individuals trapped in unemployment or low quality jobs, diversity gaps in the technology workforce, and the technology skills gap that nearly 2/3 of U.S. technology leaders say is impeding their businesses. Prescolis provides IT training for motivated and intellectually curious problem solvers from across the greater Columbus region that have an interest in IT, are unemployed or underemployed, and are seeking a better career path. In Columbus, 68% of Prescolis students are African American and 30% are women. By comparison, in an EEOC study of 75 Silicon Valley companies, just 2.2% of professional level workers were African American, while estimates of technical roles filled by women are as low as 15%. More than 40% of our students are young adults, ages 18 to 25. Incoming students must meet low to moderate income thresholds defined as 200% or below of the federal poverty guideline. With your support, our 2017 outcomes included 87% job placement rate, an average wage of $16.17 an hour, and an 85% certification rate. To date, Perscolas has graduated nearly 400 students in Columbus since its inception in 2012, placing more than 80% in jobs within 4 months of graduation. Perscolas would like to thank the City of Columbus, and in particular, Councilwoman Tyson, for all of your support. This council has been supportive of Perscolas since our beginning here in Columbus, in the Columbus community back in 2012, and we truly value the relationship and partnership we have enjoyed from our city leaders. So thank you very much.
Ms. Cunningham, can you please let the viewing and listening audience, could you provide this information to them if they would like to take classes at Perscolas? Could you share that information, please?
Sure. You apply online at www.perscolas.org. You can call our office for more information at 614-824-4777. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very pleased because, as she just mentioned, the average hourly rate is $16, and when individuals who first come to Perscolas, they're making about $7,000 a year. So you can just see what that training has now elevated them to be able to have a different quality of life. I'm going to ask if Ms. Seaford can come back to the podium just for 1 second. So again, can you share with the audience if they need to use the resources of the charitable pharmacy, how would they do that?
I'd be happy to. Our website has a wealth of information. It is just www.charitablepharmacy.org. It is that simple because there are so few of us in the nation, charitablepharmacy.org. Our phone number is 614-227-0301 to call to get information and make an appointment.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, President Hardin, and thank you, Councilmember Tyson, for inviting us here this evening. My name is Adam Fazio. I'm the Director of Development at Local Matters, here in place of our Executive Director, Michelle Moskowitz-Brown, who sends her regrets that she was traveling and unable to join this evening. But we're so grateful for your longtime support of Local Matters and our efforts to create healthier communities through food education and access. Local Matters was founded 10 years ago in response to a prediction that children born in the year 2000 would be the first generation in modern history to live shorter and less healthy lives than their parents, and in big part due to the way they were eating. Since that time, we've grown to a staff of 20, and we provide life-changing education and increased access to healthy, whole food for more than 18,000 children and adults each year. We do this at more than 100 sites across Columbus and are grateful to our many partners, including a number of city agencies and Columbus City Schools. We work with 8 Columbus City Schools, 12 Recreation and Parks Department sites where we offer hands-on gardening and education programming during the summer, and the Columbus Public Health Department, among others. We're particularly grateful to Council and to the Health Department for your leadership and partnership in the creation and adoption of the Columbus-Franklin County Local Food Action Plan. This legislation will support transformational food access and food education programming for more than 225 students at Linden Neighborhood Early Childhood Education Center and Moeller Elementary. We're working with the students for 24 weeks during the school year with hands-on, multicultural, multisensory programming that really sets them up for a lifetime of healthier choices. Our food educators create a warm and nurturing environment for students to try new foods from around the world. It's a safe environment, and it's an environment in which they get to develop positive relationships to foods. And we know that all of those things support positive food choices moving forward and also early brain development for young children. But this programming takes place in the context of much deeper relationships with these schools and with the neighborhoods that surround them, where we reach thousands more children and adults in Linden and the South Side. That includes on-site gardens and Harvest Day celebrations, cooking demonstrations at produce pantries and other community resources, and our own community kitchen, where we offer programming, hands-on food education programming to anyone regardless of ability to pay. Your investment in this programming is a part of a broad and deep investment in our neighborhoods. Thank you for your support of your work, your longtime partnership, and your longtime commitment to improving the health of our community through food. Thank you. And to learn more about our programming, all of our classes and events are listed on our website, local-matters.org, or you can call our office about events at 614-263-5662. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please forgive the laptop. My printer isn't working, so your funds are more necessary than usual. My name is Michael Corey. I'm the Executive Director of the Human Service Chamber of Franklin County, and I have the delight of representing two of the agencies before you today. I need to recruit you, so thank you for the opportunity to recruit another organization to join. Esteemed council members, I am grateful to be back in front of you this evening to discuss the Human Service Chamber of Franklin County and your kind consideration of continuing your support of our organization. Since the Human Service Chamber's inception in 2010, City Council has supported our alliance of nonprofit organizations, allowing us to serve as one voice on behalf of an army of agencies eager to serve, work together, and make our community better and more accessible for all. Since my tenure as Executive Director began in April 2017, I have been grateful for the Council's generosity with our agency and, of course, with our member agencies. The Chamber has made tremendous strides over the last 14 months, and your continued support will allow us to pursue aggressive plans supporting our member agencies more efficiently and effectively going forward, driving impact for the communities and neighborhoods and families and individuals they serve. I began this job with a proverbial listening tour with our then 49 member leaders and with our community leaders, including with some of you. I wanted to know what we could do as an organization to be uniquely helpful in delivering value and impact for our member agencies. Accordingly, we identified 5 pillars in which the Human Service Chamber could focus its work: government relations at the local, state, and federal levels, identifying and cultivating financial opportunities, convening and collaborating within our membership and with the community alike, providing trainings, offerings, and programming, and lastly, communicating to and educating our membership. We have pursued these pillars of work with urgency over the past year, and accordingly, we have grown to 63 member agencies from 49. Our goal is to reach 70 before summer's end and 85 by this time next year. But the goal is not simply to increase our membership, though that does amplify our voice all the more. Our goal is to maximize our impact with the practical and aspirational efforts alike. Over the next 12 months, for example, we intend to increase the number of trainings and offerings to our member agencies to give them the tools and connections they need in HR, PR, communications, government relations, legal services and development, and others. We intend to build a career services tool to build capacity for our members and connect job seekers with our nonprofit agencies in need of that talent. We intend to launch a new website, one that is a vehicle of the very benefits the Chamber offers to members, rather than a mere receptacle of information. It must include a community calendar, a jobs board, and a public policy tool to keep our members in our city as informed as can be. We intend to continue building upon our membership in the nonprofit Higher Education Alliance, which brings together the United Way, the Columbus Foundation, Ohio State, Columbus State, and other important organizations. Similarly, we intend to build upon our membership in Advocates for Ohio's Future as one of just 3 local organizations amongst 24 statewide organizations and alliances. Our goals extend far beyond these, but in all, we intend to become the national model for how a local nonprofit alliance can be part of the transformation of a city from however good it already is to however great it strives to be. Of course, we have a long way to go, but we have made great strides over the last 14 months with a staff of 1.5 people and with an active and inspired board of directors led by King Stump of NetCare and previously E.J. Thomas of Habitat for Humanity. This progress has been possible in large part because of this city's support for human services. Cities are standing up for people that make our cities great, and this is as important as ever. At this unique moment in our history, it's as clear as ever that we're all in this together. And in this moment, the nonprofit sector is trying to meet escalating needs in a time of escalating challenges unmet and often created by a federal government that has made no mystery of its antipathy for human services, from attacks on health care, food stamps, Meals on Wheels, legal aid, immigration services, and often on the very people that need those services the most. That's why at this inflection point in America, it is our tremendous honor at the Human Service Chamber to be the voice for human services and the voice for the people that rely upon them in difficult times, whether their family has been here for generations or whether they are new to our shores. Our voice remains necessary because the needs for our friends and neighbors persist for too many. But as long as the needs persist, so shall our members, and so shall we. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And so now I'm going to pass legislation, but I also just, it's important that people see the caliber of individuals who are running our nonprofit organizations, and that it is going to be very important as we go through different times and difficult times at our city, that we have professionals like yourselves that are out helping individuals to be able to enhance their quality of life. And certainly as we move forward through some legislation even later today, it does require really a public-private partnership, that the nonprofit organizations have to be involved in helping us to solve some of the critical issues in our community. And so I thank you, the four of you, for your leadership. And now I'm ready to pass legislation. Thank you. So the first ordinance is that's right. It's 1661 of 2018 to approve the grant application of Local Matters seeking financial assistance to address emergency human service needs pursuant to Columbus City Code, to authorize expenditure of $25,000 from the Emergency Human Services Fund, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with Local Matters to address the efficient and effective provision of supportive services, and to declare an emergency. I move for passage.
1613. Can we get a second for 1613? Please call the roll, please.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 1660-2018 to approve the grant application of the Charitable Pharmacy of Central Ohio seeking financial assistance to address an emergency human service need pursuant to the Columbus City Code, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with the Charitable Pharmacy of Central Ohio to support the provision of necessary pharmacy services, to authorize expenditure of $25,000 from the Emergency Human Services Fund, and to declare an emergency. I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 1661-2018 to approve the grant application of Perscolas seeking financial assistance to address emergency human service needs pursuant to Columbus City Code, to authorize expenditure of $37,500 from the Emergency Human Services Fund, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with Perscolas for the provision of workforce development services, and to declare an emergency. I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And the last ordinance in Health and Human Services is Ordinance 1661-2018 to approve the grant application of the Human Service Chamber of Franklin County seeking financial assistance to address emergency human service needs pursuant to Columbus City Code, to authorize expenditure of $50,000 from the Emergency Human Services Funds, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement in the Human Service Chamber with the Human Service Chamber, to with Human Service Chamber of Franklin County, to provide support for sustainability expansion efforts, and to declare an emergency. And I move for passage.
Chair, that was for ordinance
1667.
Perfect. And we have a second. Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. I'd now like to move to workforce development.
Oh, all right, sure.
This is the last. Thank you. It is ordinance 1603-2018. It's to authorize the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission to enter into a nonprofit service contract with the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio for the 2018 Restoration Academy project to authorize expenditure of $200,000 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. I'm now going to ask Director Amy DeLong to speak on this legislation.
Thank you, Chair Harden. President Harden, Chair Tyson, and other members of council. As you know, the Restoration Academy is kind of a unique program. It's successful because of the collaboration of the partners. I want to mention our partners, which are the Workforce Development Board, ResCare, Alvis, Impact, Urban League, Columbus Public Health, and Dress for Success. Just to be really quick, it's a 4 to 6 month work readiness program. I think what's notable is we've had 186 participants, and of those, 159 have graduated, and that's an 85% graduation rate and a 0 recidivism rate of that 85% who graduated from our program. I'd like Tarika to come up for just a second because our program started today and tell you just a little bit about that class.
Good evening, Ms. Cradle.
Good evening. How's everybody? Council Chair and President Harden. Our class started today. We have a class of, we started with 25, but because of our criteria, we lost a few people on the way. So we started today with a class of 22, which is comprised of 11 women and 11 men. For the next 3 weeks, we will be working on work readiness with our soft skills, and we will also be working on breaking down barriers to obtain employment. We will be at the Jerry Hammond Building for the next 3 weeks working on that, and throughout that time frame, we will work with different employers or trying to obtain different employers to use as part of the program. Our goal this year is to do more direct hire versus the internship to get people placed sooner than later.
And for the viewing and listening audience, can you just briefly share what Restoration Academy is?
Well, Restoration Academy is a 4 to 6 month work experience, well, actually 4 to 6 month paid work experience for those individuals that have a felony conviction that is nonviolent, no sex offenses towards children or the elderly, and they do not have, don't have any open cases. They can be on parole or probation. They do have to have a high school diploma or a GED. We do also, they have to be a citizen of Franklin County, and it is substance free.
Thank you. And if an individual is, I know we just started a class today, but if they're interested in getting involved in the program, how would they go about doing that?
If they are interested in our January class, for January 2019 class, they can contact my office at 614-645-8038. If they need more information, they can also go to our website, and that is columbus.gov/Restoration Academy.
Any questions for Tarika? I just want to mention that Alvis does not receive any money from these dollars.
Correct. Our money is distributed to the Workforce Development Board, and they distribute it for us as far as paying the participants.
Thank you. If there are no questions, comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committee this evening.
Thank you. I know we ran a little over. I'm going to ask for a motion to recess. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Regular meeting 35 is in recess and will be reconvene the following the zoning meeting, and we'll hear non-agenda and the last piece of legislation we have after that. We will take zoning in 3 minutes. Regular meeting number 36 will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
We will now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Tyson chairs this committee. All members serve on the committee. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before beginning the zoning agenda, I will briefly explain the rules of council as pertaining to speaking before council on zonings and variances. We permit 3 speakers on each side, 3 proponents, 3 opponents, and we ask that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes on each side, and we provide an opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. On the advice of the City Attorney's Office, we ask that anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against any council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I wish to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. Thank you. The first ordinance is 1582-2018. To rezone 3871 Stelzer Road, being 12.56 acres, located at the southwest corner of Stelzer Road and Alston Street, from CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, to CPD, Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant, Morso Holding Company, from Jeffrey Brown, is the attorney. The proposed use is to modify building setback of a mixed-use development. The City Department's recommendation is approval. The Northeast Area Commission's recommendation was approval, and it was unanimous. I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 1596-2018. It's to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.037 R2F Residential District, 3312.49 minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3221.05 B2 vision clearance, 32.05 area district lot width requirements, 3332.14 R2F area district requirements, 3332.25 maximum side yards required, 3332.26 minimum side yard permitted, and 3332.27 rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 311 and 313 East Seckler Avenue to permit a 2-unit dwelling and a single-unit dwelling on one lot with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district. The applicant is Compton Construction, care of Jeremy Miller. The proposed use is a carriage house on a lot developed with a 2-unit dwelling. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the Columbus Southside Area Commission recommendation is approval, 13-0. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 1641-2018. It's to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.035 R3 Residential District, 3212.273 Parking Setback Line, and 3212.49 C minimum numbers of parking spaces required of the Columbus City Codes for the purpose located at 1150 Bryden Road to conform existing 17-unit apartment building with reduced development standards in the R3 residential district. The applicant is Gala Sada Development, care of Dave Perry. The proposed use is to conform an existing 17-unit building. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the Near East Area Commission's recommendation is approval, 10-0. And we know we have a speaker for this legislation, Ms. Kathleen Bailey. Good evening, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you, members of council. We did approve this, and the exciting part about this is that they are redoing an existing building. This is not historic in the sense of time. It's probably built around the 60s or 70s, but what we're seeing is a lot of interest now in quality work in the neighborhood, and so these are the same people who've been before us that are doing new builds, but also to take an existing building and upgrade it. We find that extremely exciting. So just want to let you know, we've got it coming from all over. It's been a long time coming, and we're just thankful. But it's a good building, solid building, and we're glad that someone's taking interest in upgrading it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please call the row.
Brown, Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 1658-2018. It is to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3333.04, permitted uses in an ARO apartment office district, 3212.49, minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3231.07B, landscaping, 3333.15C, basis of computing area, and 3333.255, perimeter yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1444 North High Street to permit a mixed-use building containing 2,000 square feet of ground-level commercial uses and 5 apartment units on a lot developed with 2 apartment buildings with reduced development standards with the ARO Apartment Office District. The applicant is Buckeye Real Estate in care of Dave Perry. The proposed use is mixed-use development. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the University Area Commission's recommendation is 12-0. I first, Mr. Perry, any comments? No? Thank you. Move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Second. Please call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you. I move the table to 7-9-18.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Table to July
The 9th.
the 9th.
The next ordinance is 1670-2018 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.033 R2 Residential District, 3312.49C minimum numbers of parking spaces required, and 3332.26B minimum side yard permitted of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1221 Phoebus Avenue to permit an existing building maintenance business with reduced development standards in the R2 Residential District. The applicant is Sam Goldberg in care of Brent Rosenthal. The proposed use is a building maintenance business. The City Department's recommendation is approval. The Columbus Southside Area Commission's recommendation is approval. And we have one speaker on this legislation, Mr. Goldberg. He is for this legislation. Good evening, Mr. Goldberg.
Good evening. I'm going to acknowledge I'm a rookie and probably didn't need to speak tonight according to the security guard. But yeah, I'd just like to say we were the applicants for this project. The entire purpose was to split 2 properties. One is a 3-family ranch. It's a residential property, and the other is obviously an auto garage that we use for our business. And we're just trying to sell off this, single 3-bedroom ranch to a family, so they don't have to be, conjoined with a commercial business. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues? No. Thank you. And but Mr. Goldberg, we always like hearing from our residents, okay? Thank you. And we appreciate the security of giving advice. So thank you very much. I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
The next ordinance is 1580, 2018, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3333.04 permitted uses in an ARO apartment office district, 3212.21 D1 landscaping and screening, 3312.273 parking setback line, 3312.49 minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3321.01 dumpster area, 3321.05 A1, B1 vision clearance, 3333.16, fronting on a public street, 3333.18D, building lines, and 3333.24, rear yard of the Columbus City Code for property located at 973 East Broad Street to permit an apartment, hotel, a bed and breakfast, commercial office, 3-unit carriage house, and a 6-unit apartment building with reduced development standards in the ARO Apartment Office District. The applicant is Midnight Blue LLC. Care of Dave Perry. The proposed use is mixed-use development. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the Near East Side's recommendation is approval. It was 7, 3, and 1. And President Kathleen Bailey, please come to the podium and to speak on this legislation.
Thank you again. There are two things about this property, or this application, that really stand out. Number one, if I'm sure he will, the owner keeps his word, he is including affordable housing in this. There's the bed and breakfast, and there's the 3-unit carriage house, and the 6-unit apartment building, and they're going to target people such as Columbus State, CCAD, et cetera. And second of all, we had something happen which I thought was very positive. Of course, there was a concern about parking, and you're going to hear that as we continue to develop the neighborhood, because you know we're an old neighborhood, and they built the neighborhood. Nobody had a car. If they did, they had one at most. But one of the nice things that happened with the site hearing, and you know we always go out to the property, is that one of the property owners that lived right across the alley came up with, there was some talk about parking, came up with a solution. And we accepted her solution. It had to get past HRC, and guess what? They accepted it too. So we had a really good experience with that, where we were able to come up with a good feeling with a neighbor who was immediately affected by the project. But where that's been a vacant lot for quite some time. As you know, that was an old art museum, gallery, excuse me, not museum, was a gallery, an art gallery. Passed it many times. It's a beautiful building, so he's going to maintain this gorgeous historic building. He's going to build something new, and also keep in mind those persons, again, students and admin assistants who would also like to live downtown. So we're taking advantage of the fact that he's taking advantage of the fact that it's on a COTA bus line. So that's also going to be to our advantage, to continue to make this a walkable community and to have people take advantage of different modes of transportation. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Commissioner Bailey, for your leadership. Thank you so much. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That concludes our zoning agenda.
Thank you, Chair Tyson. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
We stand adjourned. I'm going to move to reconvene meeting number 35. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Meeting number 35 is now back in order. We'll give a few moments for folks to get situated, and then we will move on to our last committee. The last committee to come before council is the Rules and Reference Committee, which I chair. We have one piece of legislation in this committee this evening. It's ordinance 1777-2018. I am going to turn the committee over to Councilmember Mitch Brown. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight, ordinance 177-2018 to amend section 2171.06 of the Columbus City Codes and to repeal and replace chapter 233 of the Columbus City Codes, placing limits on distribution, ensuring ATM privacy, and preventing obstruction of public right-of-ways, and to declare an emergency. The purpose of this legislation is to repeal and replace City Code sections 233.01 through 233.04 and amend section 2171.06, each enacted in 2008. 7 years after this legislation was enacted, similar legislation in cities across the country, specifically in the city of Cleveland, was challenged on the basis that asking for money should be seen as constitutionally protected speech. In 2015, the city of Columbus took the proactive steps to halt enforcement of this law until it could be appropriately amended to ensure individuals' rights under the First Amendment. Since enforcement was suspended, the Columbus Division of Police and neighborhood advocates have seen an uptick in reports of aggressive and intimidating behavior by individuals asking for money. On March 7, 2018, I held a public hearing to collect testimony regarding specific incidents of aggressive behavior. After the hearing, the city attorney narrowly based the amendments in this ordinance on the testimony of the participants at that hearing. They also included additional testimony of residents received by my office after the hearing. I want to be perfectly clear, this legislation does not make asking for money or being homeless illegal. While enforcement is certainly the last resort, aggressive and intimidating behavior should not be tolerated. This legislation empowers our officers and communities to address safety concerns. I'm well aware that Columbus cannot and should not attempt to arrest our way out of the issue of poverty in our community. This year alone, this council invested over $7 million in human services that assist housing, food scarcity, mental health, and addiction. While all these efforts have a major impact on our community, the number of aggressive incidents have continued to rise. This legislation allows our officers with discretion to respectfully and responsibly address the safety concerns of our residents and visitors, while protecting everyone's First Amendment rights. I respectfully ask my colleagues for their support in this issue. I would like to offer an opportunity for Solicitor General Laura Baker Morris to add additional comments and to please address the status of Code Section 525. Ms. Morris?
Thank you, Councilmember Brown, for the opportunity to speak to Council tonight regarding the distribution legislation that's currently pending before you. I specifically wanted to address what this legislation does and does not do. Specifically the legislation that is before you, because there has been some questions regarding its reach. It specifically addresses individuals who are engaging in behavior that occurs predominantly in the right-of-way. So there is a provision that will prohibit vehicle drivers and occupants from engaging in distribution with pedestrians in the right-of-way. It does not prohibit asking for money in the right-of-way. It only prohibits the actual distribution or exchange of monies or pamphlets or other materials in the right-of-way. It would be permissible to make the ask in that particular location, but to actually have the distribution occur while the car is lawfully stopped or parked or pulled over to the side. Again, the intention here is to allow for free flow of traffic and to assure pedestrian safety as well. These provisions, both of vehicle driver and occupant engaging in distribution, as well as recklessly obstructing a right-of-way. Recklessly obstructing a right-of-way, it deals predominantly pedestrian obstruction, individuals who are not allowing the free flow of individuals upon sidewalks or ingresses or egresses. These provisions are misdemeanors of the 4th degree. They replace existing 233.02, which is the currently existing pedestrian interference provision. Although that has not been enforced since last year due to the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Gilbert versus Reed, it's currently still on the books in the city of Columbus, and it is a misdemeanor of the 4th degree that would disallow intentionally obstructing a pedestrian or vehicular traffic. Also, under the existing provision of the Columbus City Code, an individual who engages in this kind of behavior with an occupant of a motor vehicle while the vehicle is located on any street or offers to perform a service or a series of services without permission, that's currently a misdemeanor of the second degree. So instead, we have two provisions here that are both M4s dealing with provisions that were previously M4s and M2s. There's also a provision in the current ordinance that deals with engaging in distribution that is aggressive. I have to say I was in the Short North just yesterday. I attended a great play at the Short North stage, and 3 different individuals asked me for money. None of the individuals who asked me for money would be in violation of this ordinance. Each of them asked me for funds. I said, no, thank you. I kept walking. One of them had some very colorful words to say. None of them were threatening. No one followed me. No one touched me. And therefore, their behavior would not be prohibited by the ordinance that's before you today. Behavior that would be prohibited: knowingly touching or grabbing another person's property without that person's consent, knowingly following another person and continuing to engage in an attempt to engage in distribution with that person after they have already affirmatively stated that they did not wish to do so or could not do so. Those are the only 2 provisions that would be in violation of the ordinance as written. This is as in stark contrast to what existed previously as a misdemeanor of the second degree under the aggravated panhandling statute. Finally, ATM privacy. As it currently existed, ATM privacy violations were construed as aggressive panhandling and were misdemeanors of the second degree. As this legislation is written, it's a misdemeanor of the 4th degree, and rather than the 25-foot buffer that existed previously, it is a 3-foot buffer. It makes it clear that without the person's permission, who's using the ATM, who's entering their private information and their PIN numbers, then a person cannot be within 3 feet of them at that time without their consent. So that is what the legislation does do. The legislation also specifically references the ability to obtain a permit. Currently, 525.24 of the Columbus City Code allows for a permit to be obtained to solicit in the roadway. The advice of the City Attorney's Office, based upon Gilbert versus Reed, is that 525.24 likewise be amended to assure that it too has neutral application, so that individuals and companies, whether they're engaged in charitable contributions or if they simply wish to engage in any other kind of non-commercial distribution in the roadway, would have the opportunity to apply to the licensing section to seek a one-day permit each year. Those amendments have been provided, and I've been working with Chair Brown's staff on the language. It's my understanding that there are some mechanics that still need to be worked out, but that definitely is contemplated as part of this whole code revision to address the Gilbert versus Reed. Leave Councilmember Brown, that's all that I had.
Thank you, Baker Morris. Are there any comments from my colleagues? I do have speakers this evening. Priscilla Tyson.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Brown. And I
Yes.
also, first I want to thank you for certainly having conversations with me over the weekend and discussing this issue after last week's hearing. And I also appreciate the discussions I've been able to have with some of my council colleagues in regard to this legislation. And I'm glad that we're clarifying some of this legislation today. Of course, we knew about the right-of-way, and we don't want anyone to stop at the, we don't want to be giving money in the right-of-way and passing money or items when you're in your car, et cetera. Certainly, and also in terms of the ATM privacy, no one wants anyone to be up close to them where they're just trying to get either pay bills or receive dollars from the ATM. And then we had and I appreciate the conversation that we've had about this aggressive behavior, because I think last week, and maybe this was how my perception of it, and I think some others, was that, if you wanted to give someone some money on the street, that it would, you could or they could be, charged, you could be charged with, a fourth-degree misdemeanor, et cetera. And so I'm appreciative that it is aggressive behavior and not just the behavior of if someone walks up to you and you want to give them $1 or an item or something, that's still acceptable. And then we've all had these conversations, and today, and I'm appreciative of that, is around the issue of individuals who happen to be on our streets. And certainly, I don't think anyone wants to be a panhandler. I mean, that's not something you want to do. But based upon circumstances, that's where people happen to be in their lives are asking for dollars. And I listened to the testimony last week, and it was clearly that we have a place for everyone. And as Chair of Health and Human Services, I know that, I mean, we love to have a place for everyone to get to be able to get all the services that they need. However, I know that we don't, as I said last week, that when we look at human services and we're ready to ask for applications for people who want humans who want to continue to support our community, that 4 years ago we had $13 million worth of ask and we had $5 million to give. And I think all those people, all those nonprofits that were asking for dollars were ones that are doing good work. But we're limited on our dollars. And so I just want to be clear that there has to be some more work really done around this issue. I don't certainly want people arrested when they're not going to be or being fined, because if they get fined, and it's just an aggressive behavior, but just individuals who are on the street asking for $1, I didn't want them to have to be fined. They already don't have money. They would not be able to pay a fine of $150 or $250. That's just not even going to happen. So we have to make sure that this issue is bigger than what the legislation is today. It just brings up that these are issues in our community, and we need to be able to address those issues. So I do thank you, Solicitor General, that's the new title, Solicitor General Baker and Councilman Brown, for listening. I do appreciate that. My colleagues have committed to, those I've spoken with, have agreed to look at this issue and try to figure out how to provide additional resources, because you're not going to stop people from being on the street when you cannot be in the homeless shelter during the day. So you can't, if you are a sex offender, you can't even go to the homeless shelter, and you can't get a job. So there are some issues and gaps that we need to begin to think about how we are going to, what we can do to work with the private sector to try to help us to resolve some of these issues. And I thank my colleagues for having the willingness to want to work on this issue. But I also now can think, because of those discussions, could be supportive of the legislation, because it is now very clear as to what it is and to what it is not. So thank you.
Council President, thank you very much, Councilmember Tyson. We have 4 speakers, if I may, and I would take them in the order to which they were submitted. Ms. Sarah Loken, is she still here? Sarah?
Good evening. I'm Sarah Loken with Community Shelter Board, the collective impact organization leading a coordinated and community effort to work toward everyone having a place to call home. Thank you, President Hardin, Councilmember Brown, and all members of council. Between Michelle Heritage and myself, we did attend both public hearings that have been held in recent weeks, and we do support the proposed legislation. We believe this is the right first step in any comprehensive approach to dealing with panhandling. It's true that legislation alone won't fix the problem, but it is necessary to keep everyone safe, both givers and receivers. So in a comprehensive approach to panhandling, we think that 4 things need to be present. Legislation is just one of them. The second thing that we need is more street outreach presence to make sure that people facing homelessness and people in need can get access to services. The City of Columbus is heavily invested in services for people facing homelessness, as was mentioned. You invest annually to support street outreach programs, the homeless hotline, shelters, rehousing assistance, and supportive housing. So thank you for that. The Community Shelter Board oversees a street outreach program that is run through Maryhaven, and the city is the largest investor in that work. Many other groups do street outreach as well, besides Maryhaven. Capitol Crossroads, the Short North Alliance, and Mount Carmel, just to name a few. We work closely with all the different groups that do street outreach, and I'll note that even more partnerships are being formed thanks to the public discussions that are growing because of these hearings. So we need to continue this work and invest even more resources to increase the presence of street outreach to make sure everyone is getting connected to help. And I appreciate Councilmember Tyson's comments about gaps in services. It is true that our safety net is not as large as the need in our community. That is true. I'm glad, though, that the street outreach team that is operated through Maryhaven, they are able, even when we have waiting lists for shelter, they are able to connect with people on the street. That's why they exist, to help people get connected to food, medical care, whatever they need, and they complete housing applications. So just last year, this one single team housed over 100 people directly from the streets. So when there's a wait for a shelter bed, that does not mean that help is not available to someone who is on the street. I want to clarify that. So we talked about legislation as number 1, street outreach as number 2. Number 3 is more police presence in places where panhandling is most prevalent. Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
Ms. Loken, thank you again for coming down and
Yeah.
for your engagement in the previous meetings, but
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Ms. Kayla Merchant? Okay. Also, Mr. Trent Smith. Ms. Merchant was against this legislation. Mr. Trent Smith, who also had to leave, was for the legislation. And we have a Jasmine Ayers. Ms. Ayers?
Good evening, everybody. President Hardin, council members, I appreciate you having us tonight. I don't really have anything prepared, but just wanted to talk a little bit about my feelings and my opinion about this particular legislation. I absolutely appreciate you all wanting to keep my people and my friends and my family safe. I'm a woman. I know what it's like to walk down the street and your heart drops into your stomach because you see somebody behind you. But I've lived in this city for a long time. I've been in a lot of places on a lot of different sides of town, had a lot of conversations with our homeless population. And I've honestly had more problems from drunk bros on a Saturday night in the Short North harassing people than I have ever had from anybody panhandling. I absolutely think that we need to keep our people safe, but I would ask that we just table this to have a little bit more of a robust conversation around first steps that we can take that might not be so severe. This seems like a really severe first step. And absolutely, we may end up at this place, but I think that there are things that we can do, more creative, cost-effective solutions that we can take to maybe prohibit some of these things. I know humans have a thing with lines. If you paint a bright yellow line around an ATM, usually people stand behind it. It's not just panhandlers that stand too close to you at an ATM. It's something that everybody needs to sort of be aware of. So I think that there are steps that we can take. And like I said, I absolutely appreciate the fact that you all have our safety in mind, but I think that this is a very aggressive first step. And we know that a lot of our homeless population suffers from mental health issues. And as increased interactions with mental health patients and police officers, it sometimes doesn't go well. And so we would like to sort of decrease those interactions and not increase those interactions. And I fear that sort of phone calls for someone who may not be in harm's way but isn't just used to living in the city could sort of escalate into something that it wasn't meant to be. And I do want to leave you with this. The spirit of its people is the soul of the city. May the spirit of Columbus ever be one of progress, honor, and goodwill to all. And that was one of our former mayors. It's downstairs. And so I just hope that you take that into consideration when you're considering this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers, for coming down. And also our final speaker is Mr. Cleve Rick Seckler.
Council President Hardin, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. When Jasmine was talking just now, it reminded me of a person who was visiting my daughter who grew up in the Short North, who came from Muirfield for an evening in the Short North, and he was panhandled by somebody. He called 911, and she said, just relax, you know, this is not a big deal. But anyways, I'm here. I really appreciate the thoughtful discussion that we're having tonight. Councilmember Tyson, I think your comments are very well taken in terms of increasing resources for things like outreach would be a huge help. The property owners in Capital Crossroads and Discovery SIDS, and I'm the executive director of both, do support the legislation. They do recognize that enforcement is not the right thing to do in most situations and not very effective. If somebody needs to be reconnected with a caseworker, if somebody is off their medications, needs a new ID, is seeking shelter, enforcement is not only inappropriate, but it's not even very helpful. They get that. For that reason, the downtown property owners have hired and employed for more than 10 years 2 full-time outreach specialists who have a caseload of 15 people. Outside of downtown, the caseloads, I understand, run 100 to 150 people. And so the downtown property owners have made a big commitment to addressing this in ways other than enforcement. They also understand that the city can't outlaw panhandling, and that's not the issue here. People have a right to ask for money. I will say that we prefer that the public give money to agencies that help people in need of services rather than giving money to panhandlers, because you don't know how that money is going to be used, and addictions are a big problem, at least in downtown. But this legislation really addresses a very limited number of situations where somebody engages in threatening behavior. Asking for money and grabbing somebody, asking for money and then getting a no and being pursued down the sidewalk, blocking somebody from walking down the sidewalk once the person said no. And honestly, if I were at an ATM, I would not want somebody coming right up next to me to ask for money. And so this just gives the option of enforcement in these cases. But I know in observing officers in downtown Columbus, the officers don't want to arrest somebody with mental health problems or addiction problems. It just gives the officers a chance to say to somebody, you know, this is not legal, and so you need to stop doing whatever the behavior is. And so what I really appreciate about Columbus is that we've always been very measured about these approaches. We never take drastic action, swinging one way or the other. And I think this is a very thoughtful discussion, a very thoughtful piece of legislation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricksecker. I appreciate you coming down. Again, for all of my colleagues, the issue is addressing the concerns that have been brought to me by members of the community. Again, this legislation is not a panacea to deal with the issue about panhandling, and it is not, as I've already stated, a circumstance where people cannot still panhandle. But we do have circumstances where people do lose control, and that needs to be addressed. And as I stated earlier, the discernment on the part of our law enforcement officers and our social workers is very, very prevalent in things we deal with every single day. So with that, I'm asking for approval of this legislation. And I ask for move for passage.
By voice. Would you call the vote by voice, please?
Please call by voice.
Please, clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Page? Yes. Remy? Yes. Stenziano? Yes. Tyson?
As I've said, I'm going to support this because it's very clear about what it is. It is not panhandling, it is aggressive panhandling. But it also, to me, is that, just kind of listening to some of the testimony, that, and I appreciate Mr. Rick Seckler saying that they hired 2 people to be able to help to do the work. And that, and I heard Sarah mention that there's work being done. We need to know what that work is. We need to know what that work is. I'm not sure that, I've heard about all the work that's being done, and I don't know if my colleagues have. So if there's individuals who are saying this is an issue and that they're working on it, we need to hear about it, because you just heard me say that it is important for us. I got my colleagues that say we want to work on this issue. We want to work on this issue. We want to be a part of this issue. So with that, as long as that's going to happen, I can support for these 3 areas for this legislation, but we have to be very clear about it. Thank you.
President Harden.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. There will be no council meeting on July 2nd, 2018. The next regular meeting of council will be on July 9th, 2018. Can I get a motion to adjourn meeting 35? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Page, Remy, Stenziano, Tyson, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. We will take non-agenda speakers momentarily.